These secretaries will still be in to visit with us and be roughly 4:30 a little after. For this cause, she'll come from here, here's some information, and then back to edit.
Worked it out.
Yeah,
Thank you, Megan.
it's a village.
It does take about 2 minutes.
Okay.
I wonder if I should put this on the website. So I think, yeah. Oh, you think he said he took his
So I'm gonna do the good afternoon. So good afternoon. It is Tuesday the 16th. It's a few minutes after the 4. This is a second meeting of Senate Natural Resources and Energy. We're continuing our work on the housing bill and the Act 250 bill 8687. We finished our walkthrough this morning of the first part of the bill. We need to come back to that. We also need to integrate sections from 311 that are not in this. And that really focuses on roughly the first 21 pages, 20 sections or so of H311 is passed by the Senate Economic Development. Council, if you're managing edits, do you have a preference as to whether or not we go back to this 2-1 stuff and sign off basically, or review, edit, highlights the yellow stuff from this morning, or go on to 311 first? I know you have to put things together, so do the sequence that it helps you.
LG Cassidy, Office of Legislative Counsel. I don't have a preference. I will say, I don't think there is a ton in 2.1.
Yeah.
You already discussed some of them earlier this
Yeah.
morning. And so there isn't a ton in there. There is at least one thing you haven't discussed in there that you will need to discuss.
The suspense is killing me. What is it?
It's the sunset provision related to utility exemption.
Yes.
Oh, if that is the only thing between us and the finish line, we're
I know.
golden. Okay. Great, so let's do that. Let's do 2-1 first. Clear that out and build a little momentum. We'll have a break when Secretary Curley gets here, and then we'll switch over to the 311, the provisions and knit these things together. Great.
So I know this is a little awkward. This morning you worked to make some decisions, and those are not incorporated into 2.1. 2.1 reflects yesterday's decisions.
Yeah.
And you've already talked about a few of them. So that's what we're doing though. So the pages are in yellow.
So Senator McDonald, just so you know, grab 2.1 from this morning, dated 4/5, for anyone watching. Date time stamp 4/15/24, 9:01 p.m.
So the first change, which I did not highlight, is the fact that the session law purpose section from H687 that's passed by the House is not in this version. Section 1 is now the statutory purpose section. So just to remind you the difference between those two things, the session law provision was more of a statement about what the different elements of the bill were and why the House was doing that. That's the session law provision that's no longer in this draft. Section 1 here is a statutory purpose section, and this would be the purpose section for Act 250. So it would start the Act 250 chapter. And so this would be used as part of statutory interpretation that a court would do when looking at Act 250 issues, if there were issues that come up with construction and how to interpret different sections. So I did just want to flag that because yesterday you were discussing whether or not you wanted to have anything in a session law purpose section, or if you wanted to add something to the statutory purpose section. And so they do have different reasons for being.
Yeah, okay. And so I took a whack at it and it wasn't so successful. So I figured can come back, but just thematically, so the notion was to somehow make a reference to the fact that. like, we know there's development going on, and we want it to be addressed in a way that. Comports the overall design. And purpose here, we protect and conserve the environment and to support the goals of the capability development. So. Let me just say, I had imperfect language, but, and we can. I'll work on it some more. Just want to make sure, here's the thing, it's a little more specific. Wanted to make sure I look at the capability development, plan. In order to make sure that I wasn't sort of stepping on its toes, if it's already addressing, for instance, the broad concept of smart growth. Then that's already folded into that plan, we don't need to call out just that element. Sort of give it different prominence than it would be as embedded in a larger capability development. I then pull out sort of a favorite child and move it out, if it's already in there, it's in there, and I just didn't have time to go and check that, so. Small potatoes compared to the, well, not small potatoes, an important potato, but not one we need to sort out now.
We can bake this potato
We
later,
could-
is that?
Well, and then, thanks for the reminder about baking, there is time from here to adjournment that I think the bill will have some. Motion going. We have the ability to amend once it leaves the committee. We go to the floor, we'll be off of the House Committee of Conference, and there'll be an opportunity to have more discussion. So, feel like I call Act 50 the development DNA of the state of Vermont, so I mess around with the genome, doing things that are flopping. Come on.
Mr. Chairman, much of the rhetoric we've heard about this bill. Has been, can be, I think, reduced to. We want more housing construction, Act 250 interferes with that, we want to get it out of the way. If you look at the language in the bill. A lot of the language in the bill is about environmental protection. And as you say, there is. We are not only expecting construction, we are encouraging. And so I think it will be a good thing to have in the bill that it is our intention that we not lose environmental protection in this extended construction, that we're for the construction. In other words, basically, we state the base, do it for 200. And so that we do want more housing construction. And we want it done right, environmentally right. And in fact, that's really what the bill tries to do. But you know, when you get into debates about legislative intent, I would certainly feel more comfortable. So,
Right, so that's my first flag. Didn't make it very far, that's actually section 1, but onward and upward, let's keep going.
And remind me later, but the capability development plan is in this book.
What is the number?
The capability and
Oh.
development plan, if you want to look at it, it's not on the website.
Okay, thanks for that reminder. We have, I don't think we have copied that.
Yeah, you should, yeah,
A number.
yeah, it's also, I think it might be in the rebook, because it's session long.
So. Onward, page 2.
So the changes throughout, and I don't know if I highlighted all of them. Are changing the name of the board from the Environmental Review Board to the Land Use Review Board. In addition, on page 2. There is a change to that. On that board, the chair shall be a full-time position and the other 4 members shall be full-time positions.
Right, so that was a change we just proposed, you know, like full-time staffing, not half-time staffing. Well, we'll end up dealing with the note I'm making for myself, besides that being, was that a program design change, was there's money involved, so we're gonna have to square that money up. Just talked to Pro Tem about that and. We're gonna do our work, then see the total, what the money looks like, and then we'll square up with, there's money trapped, there's money being raised. Like the property transfer tax adjustments, and there's money being allocated elsewhere, so. We will get squared away. You know what?
Just thinking about. At this point, we've changed it to full time. That's a pretty big change.
Yep.
I'm not sure if we came to agreement on it as a committee,
I don't think we,
so I'm wondering, when do you want us to come to agreement?
if you wanna flag that as a question rather than a.
It feels like we might be at like decision point on some of this stuff.
We're trying to wrap it up.
Yeah, so I'm wondering if we could just say yay or nay on certain
Okay,
things,
yeah,
is
yeah,
that
yeah.
all right?
Yeah, let's do that, as we go, I thought. I wasn't being explicit enough, that's I figured if people
Okay.
didn't say they had an issue with an edit that we were accepting, so maybe a little
Okay.
more explicitly. Does anyone have a concern about the change to full time? What?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I am comfortable with them being full-time positions at this point, however. In part, the appeals process of where the appeals process lives and what we're doing with it in this bill. Will, it will make me wonder, if they don't take on appeals, I don't think it makes as much sense to have them all be full-time.
Yeah.
For the remainder.
Yeah.
So that decision is contingent for me.
Okay.
So I
Okay.
wanted to make that known.
Great. Yeah, one of the conversations I think we're gonna have as we go along is. How many things are happening in the new professionalized board on what schedule? And then how do you need to staff in order to get those things done well? So I share your concern.
But we are saying check yes as a committee to making it full-time moving forward.
It's easier to go down than it is to go up.
I'm open, yeah, full-time.
Otherwise, you're asking for more, easier to see from than. The ground, that's in the process. of
Finger high.
saying.
Yeah, this is why I wanted the farms still in the bill, but that's another.
Yeah. Okay, and then page 2, so that's that board, anyone have a. Any thoughts, that's throughout. Planning review board, we're all good to go on that. Getting up for the discussion, onward. That's the same thing on. Online,
Page 5, yep, and draft 2.1. Land use review board. Page 7, I pointed out I was changing the cross reference to reference the per diem statute.
all right, that,
Yep, it previously was a different per diem statute.
all good to go on that. Page 8, determination.
It previously was judicial determinations.
Okay, all right, because we borrowed from judicial nominating board, which is not really public attention. I got it, any questions? No. You? Good. And I know we have a memo, thank you, Senator Watson, for getting it with, coordinating that. Edits for we look at later, so figure we can. See through this document and then come to that document and then look back again.
You don't want them to
Unless you can see them
I am
in real
doing
time.
that.
Right,
So we're working it out.
all right. That would be great. You can keep your eye on that. I'm gonna have trouble doing that and.
Hopefully if I miss.
On page 4, the word appeals appears.
Page
Yeah,
4.
no, and I just was, but I haven't seen the word housing or anything like that show up yet in most of them. Just curious when the word housing would show up in the statute in the middle.
Well, I'll just say that. H687 has come over from the house, wasn't specifically a housing bill.
Yeah. I mean, I think part of that headline was the thought. Well, I guess just that. Okay.
Excuse me. Very good. When is the nominating committee supposed to have nominated the board?
So, the members of the committee are to be appointed hopefully by July 31st of 2024.
Yeah.
And it does not put a deadline on when they specifically need to submit names to the governor by.
It's not like end of year.
No, it's not.
Yeah.
There isn't any specifics around that, just that the governor shall have made the decision on the appointments by July 1 of 2025.
Okay.
So there isn't that interim step spelled out.
There are instances in which, I'm tipping a hand with it. There are instances, for example, ELCOT. If a legislator is on ELCOT, when that legislator's term ends, he or she remains on it until the successor,
Yeah, February,
even though they're no longer in office.
we said that.
That, that language is in this statute as well.
So a legislator appointed to this committee,
Yes,
you're gonna have to, is one term.
it's at the bottom of page 5.
Okay.
Yep.
Everyone just saying, I was like.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
Yep, that I was slow enough, so you got that one, okay.
No, sure.
All right, so I think I missed highlighting a couple of the references to the LURB, but the changes made throughout.
Yeah, I read it, should be approved by. I am gonna know, whether or not, for the sake of timeliness, we. Want to revisit that July 25 date for appointment of the first members.
Okay.
Let's go along winding. Given that it's April 24. Thank you.
Did you, okay,
Just remarking.
yeah, I mean, it is technically a full year, but. So first though, people have to be appointed to the nominating committee itself, will that happen by July 31st?
Not super likely.
Right, and they have to put up a posting or to advertise the position, and then they have to start doing interviews on the positions. Chair Haskell testified that when they did the cannabis control board appointments, it did take less than a year to get all those people interviewed and appointed.
Okay,
But
that's an end date, it's not a,
Yes.
it's just a, could be sooner.
yes, and
Okay. We'll leave well enough alone, thank you.
that starts the next fiscal year, which does seem like a nice round number to start the actual transition, but you could make it earlier if you would like.
I withdraw that thought. Okay, onward.
So the next change is on page 20. I think I did already mention this one, but this was just correcting the fact that this section is referring to the issuance of decisions on appeals pursuant to this section in section 6001 or 6007. But this section was 689, so that was this section, so it's redundant. So just was grammar.
Keep going for another meeting. Okay. See how far we get. Senator Watson, do you know where your first call out is to us?
Yes, it is not until page 50.
Okay. We're at money, so.
Next yellow is on page 33. And those changes in yellow are again to changing the name of the board to the Land Use Review Board and making it 4 full-time board members.
And then we have another money provision to keep on one device. We're reconciling the budget
My apologies, 46.
Okay, great.
Or 45, sorry.
Let's just. Let's do a couple more.
Don't worry about it. Those are fine, so.
Additionally, the changes on page 34, again, to the name of the board. And, I updated the revision authority to be for next year after the board starts, so that the name change in the statute doesn't happen until after that.
Okay, so then,
Name change of the board on page 36. On page 38, it had been Habitat Connect Doors instead of Habitat Connect Doors.
and let's just go through the bottom of page 40.
Sure, on page 40, this was a grammar change I suggested yesterday. For or perhaps on Friday, wood products manufacturer.
Yeah.
So now, the substance of the isn't changing, but it now reads, a conversion of primary agricultural soils by a wood products manufacturing facility shall be allowed to pay a mitigation fee of 1-to-1. Before it just said wood products manufacturer. Probably refer to the actual use as opposed to a person.
So now it's one and the same. Okay, perfect. This is, I think, a good one to just pause. Secretary Curley's your best, so let's. Swap chairs, tight shift here.
Oh, and I think.
Good afternoon, Master. Good to see you. Usually see you maybe down the hall, but not in this committee room. So, welcome to Senate Natural. And, so we are in the, I should stay away from sports metaphors, but we're kind of in the 2-minute drill at the end of a game where there's a lot going on. And you're familiar with the whole thing, so I'm happy to hear your thoughts on the bill.
Thank you. So for the record, I'm Lindsay Curley, the Secretary of the Agency of Commerce and Community Development. And I do know you are in the final 2 minutes of the race here, and I so appreciate you squeezing me in so I could share some thoughts from the administration. So I am here to express the position of the administration and, want to share that, we have continued to articulate that we are in a housing crisis and the need for a housing bill that addresses the immediate needs of Vermonters and something that will help jumpstart the creation of new units. It's our position that the Housing Bill S11 and the Land Use and Conservation Bill H 687 should remain separate in order to achieve that goal. I offer these comments to you under the assumption that there's an agreed upon premise that we would be able to immediately increase housing production by creating exemptions in areas where we know we want housing and where municipalities and families have signaled that they need housing and where we have adequate sewer and water infrastructure. This committee and others have heard from builders and developers and land use experts, planners and housing advocates who have all said that more housing will be built in areas where they create regulatory exemptions, including Act 250. And none of us know exactly what the silver bullet is, but there's enough evidence to show that modernizing zoning, tax incentives, investments will move the needle, and what we need in this moment is to move that needle. And we can preserve the beauty of our state and encourage growth in areas where we want it at the same time. In my seat, I hear builders say when they start the process that they don't want to incur enormous fees or spend money only to find out that they can't build, so they purposely avoid Act 250. Just yesterday, I was sitting in a presentation that as much as I hear data day in and day out, I continue to feel shocked when I see data about housing. I was presented with data that suggested that only 6% of Vermont renters can afford the median cost of a Vermont home as of 2023. 6%. That's alarming. And it should alarm all of us. And to me and my team, it signals that we need to be doing everything that we can right now and expending all of our energy on ways to move that needle forward in the forward direction. We know we can't buy our way out of this. And I've said this a few times and I'll say it again. We can't buy our way out of this. The spending in S11 was never intended to be separated from the housing reform pieces related to Act 250, municipal zoning and tax incentives. We maintain that we need it all.
You mean S311, right?
Yeah.
Or is there, you're talking about the House bill,
We're talking about, yeah.
311.
311.
Okay, I just want, because there's also a housing bill, that's not what we're talking about.
No, we're talking about S311, there's
Okay.
stuff going in a few different vehicles here.
Okay, thank you.
Yes.
I just want to make sure, thanks. Senator.
Yes, yeah. All Vermonters need more housing options and we need them for young people who are just trying to get their start, families with kids who attend our schools, older people who are trying to downsize, and individuals and families who are experiencing homelessness, as well as people who want to move here and share the Vermont experience with all of us. We didn't get here overnight. It took us decades of underbuilding, and this problem can't be solved with, as I mentioned, just money alone. And we firmly believe we can preserve our rural working lands and key natural resources while supporting and rehabilitation of blighted housing stock and adding new units of housing. So again, I'll reiterate, please give us 2 bills so that we can accomplish these goals together. So I want to be clear with what I'm asking for, but also want to be clear that I understand that this committee is in the final hours of making decisions on H687. So my team and others are going through the bill and we're going to need time. And as I speak, there are folks that are going through draft 2.1. But I will say on the first read, there are several concerns that we have. And some were highlighted in Secretary Moore's testimony last week. And you know, understanding the likelihood of getting 2 separate bills, I really want to relate the must-have changes from the administration. If I might just have a few more moments.
Sure.
Oh,
Can we get
yeah.
your testimony or some version of it after the fact in
Oh.
writing, so we
Okay.
can listen better and make sure we heard correctly?
Absolutely, I'd be happy to do that.
Thanks.
First, we want to include all the provisions from the Senate Economic Development Committee's past version of S311, including the Tier 3 framework, which this committee recently changed. So S311 provisions provide immediate relief for housing development. Appeals must stay with the environmental court. The administration doesn't believe that the land use review board should hear appeals. Second, adopt S311 position to add an e-court judge to further expedite appeals. And again, I'll provide this to you all. Adopt the other appeals updates that are in S311. And again, not to go into the weeds on all of that, but S311 addresses a minimum of any 25 people who participated in the process or up to 3% of the population, whether or not they participated. It raises the thresholds. Again, we welcome input, but want to make sure that we are aligning the appeals process with state and thing. S311 interim Act 250 relief. The agency supports the S311 immediate interim Act 250 exemption. Commissioner Farrell offered some opportunities for refinement with their sunset in 2029. So this is building on similar logic on the longer term vision, but while the detail work is being done, while the mapping is being done, this will allow housing to be built now. So again, the goal here is to really let the housing get out of the gate, and I firmly believe we won't break anything while that other work is being done. S311 zoning and municipal changes. We found that some towns are working around the Be Home bill, so there's language in S311 to address those concerns. This would be parking bylaw changes, decreased density requirements for places with water and sewer, some clarifications to Act 100. Other asks, tax valuation freeze at 5 years for blighted properties that will be used as long-term rentals for permanent residences. Property tax relief, currently it's sitting at H719, but that's where, again, for blighted property, the property transfer tax that's paid by the buyer, instead of going to the tax department, it could be used to invest in the property to fix that blighted property up. Funding of the VHIP program at the governor's recommend, which is 6 million, we are finding that program to be incredibly impactful, and we can bring those units online very quickly and a much lower cost than many other options. The healthy homes at the governor's recommend to bring that to the 2 million, which is the governor's recommend, and the manufactured homes also to bring that to the governor's recommend back to the 2 million. So again, we know there are other changes that have been made. We're still reviewing that, but knowing how quickly things are moving, we really wanted to get in here and talk about that. There are also changes to H687, and I'm not gonna, lie. I get a little bit out over my skis here because it's in a realm with natural resources, and we have Billy in the room, and so would happily, take his input as well, but we do have some comments on here, and I'll just take a very high level on that as well, but the tier 1A requirements need to be scaled back, so we do agree with the RPCs as Charlie Baker's testimony submitted indicated. The tier 1A and 1B need to be simplified if we really want towns to be able to participate. Again, you heard briefly from Secretary Moore and Commissioner Farrell that the threshold right now is far too high. And the threshold for standing to appeal a tier 1 decision needs to be removed or higher as well. The standing to appeal, I guess it's the
So
appeal decision.
You're trying to make it so that people have, it's a higher barrier for people to appeal, that's what you're
Right.
saying? Okay.
Right, yes.
Okay, not making it easier, you're
Right.
trying to have them have it a higher standard, okay, I understand.
Yes.
I was like, that seems,
Right, if I said it backwards, yeah, we're trying to raise that threshold.
that.
Oh, and also, updated and fixed timeline for the tiers, so basically by passing 311 and allowing for immediate housing development in our downtowns, it would allow for more time to create a realistic and thoughtful, on-ramp for the development of the tier jurisdiction, so. Again, just really wanted to put another, plea in to get, a housing bill like S311 over the finish line and get us rolling on that, so.
Well, thank you. So as you noted, although the preference might have been for two separate bills, they are in fact getting married, these two together and traveling together. In terms of, the money the cost related things, I think one of the concerns about Act 250 is cost of compliance. So just when you were saying, I think I appreciate what money won't get us out of this, reducing the cost of going through the process will be somewhat helpful, but there are bigger forces at play, to make progress. And I think our committee goal is to have a bill that is responsive in the near term to the housing crisis, and also helps revitalize and modernize Act 250 for the long, because it is a dramatically different regulatory landscape than when it was launched 54 years ago. There's much more array of municipal and regional planning, mapping, a lot of tools out there and a lot of people out there that weren't really in that world when this came along. So we want to be able to build on it. And that the beautiful environment all around us, it's hard, I think, to appreciate how healthy, solid, environmentally friendly, green, beautiful, all the rest it is. But I think Act 250 has gone a long way to helping create that environment, and so we want to preserve the best of it and a really positive, forward-looking movement. Makes it progress in the development. So we should move on, but Senator White, or Senator Watson, or both, you have some, I don't wanna do Q and A for long, just go back to Bill. Senator McDonald, I see you're moving, everyone's moving now, all right, one question apiece.
Okay, well, I have two questions, okay, thank you.
You can get one to some.
Secretary, thank you so much for coming in. It's really wonderful to have the administration participating. It felt like throughout this process, we didn't really have, I would say, as much of an open partnership as I think would have been helpful for us to come to more agreement on some of the points that you've made. And perhaps it's just kind of where staff aligns and the ability for them to kind of bridge the gap from being in housing world to being in the natural resources world with this committee. So I do just wanna say that, but I appreciate your points, and I think it's unfortunate that like the rhetoric of housing crisis has been used to say that this committee isn't acting on the housing crisis, which I think is the exact opposite of our premise and why we support the bill. So I just wanna respond to that. But I had two questions. And I'm gonna say them as one, because, or maybe I'm gonna have a comment.
Right.
The way your comments were shaped is it felt like that you may be signaling to us that the governor will be vetoing this bill. That is what I intimated from your commentary. Not a question, because you're not in a position to be able to respond to that. If I go on that assumption, it doesn't make sense. We would not have the ability to pass S311 at this point. So we would, if we are unable to do the thing that you are asking us to do in your comments because of the way our rules work, because it wasn't seen by the House. The only way for us to pass S311's concepts would be to include it as one bill. So it is impossible for us to do the thing that you're asking us to do and still keep the sections of the bill. So I'm wondering if you could respond to that. Because we will not be able to not have a veto.
Well, so the bill has been sitting on the wall since February. In terms of engaging, I'll go back to the first thing. Our team feels like we've engaged at every opportunity where we've been invited to engage. And so I don't want the committee to feel that we are launching a grenade here to say that you oppose housing. I think we feel these are two different conversations. And so I'm coming here today saying we need a housing bill. And so if not here somehow, some way, I have to believe a housing bill can get across the finish line. I don't know how that works, but I have to believe a housing bill can get across the finish line. So that's all I have.
Okay. I was going to ask a corollary to that, I suppose. If we were to make all of the changes that you were suggesting, but keeping them together. Assume the answer is that you can't guarantee this, but would the governor veto? I don't know if you can say. Am I not allowed to ask that?
I mean,
I'm not gonna ask anything, I would just say at this point, there's.
Okay, I'm gonna not.
It is a dry well, you can't
Okay,
you can never, no secretary that I've ever seen comes in the room and says, well, the governor will run that too.
that's fair.
That's just not their job, so. And
Well, you did-
we can't negotiate points that way, that's all.
Just say it's good to know, thank you.
Yeah, I'm just asking for a housing bill.
Fair enough.
Alright, so Senator McDonald?
Apologize, in your opening remarks, we're talking about 6% of Vermonters can't afford rent.
6% of Vermont renters
Yeah.
can afford to buy a home at the median range in Vermont. It's a shocking and staggering, disappointing number, and that number's down from just 2 years before by about 19 or 20%.
Yeah, and this is at a time when homes are selling like hotcakes by people who believe that they're buying them because they're affordable.
Yeah, I mean,
But-
it's been bad
Yeah.
for years, but
Yeah.
yeah, it's just
But it's
getting.
not Vermonters.
Yeah.
Tending to be able.
Well, I mean, again, I don't wanna go into a long debate, but it's
I wasn't
even
gonna
Vermonters,
debate.
right, even Vermonters that are ready to move out of their homes that they raise their families in. Don't feel they have choices, options, right, because there's been such stagnant. Growth in building for their next phase, right, they don't have choices even, so there's a variety different reasons that we're in the position we're in. And you're right, there are some people that have come to Vermont because of the beauty that we just talked about, right? And they want to enjoy that as well, so. Yeah, there's a lot of reasons. Schools, right, there's a lot of wonderful things for why people want to be here and. Yeah.
Well,
So thank you for the opportunity, and I know you squeezed me in and, you know, I appreciate it.
sure. Yeah, just today we're looking at, there's a New York Times piece that talks about how much paralysis has come to the market because of the spike in mortgage rates, you know, we're getting pinched from multiple sides, workforce, cost of materials, labor, and mortgage. So, we'll do our part and where we can and try to help more people
Great.
have, a safe, healthy home.
Great, thank you.
Thank you.
Everyone.
Right, Mr. Kowski.
Alright, draft 2.1. Page 40,
Section 23, the road.
the road rule. Okay, so I did not make any substantive changes to the road rule. I did break it out into individual subsections. I guess there's two small changes that I have already mentioned previously.
That's a word.
Yeah, it's on page 41, so it's now, jurisdiction shall not apply unless the length of any single road is greater than 800 feet. Or the length of all roads and any associated driveways in combination is greater than 2,000 feet. And then also I mentioned, I think this morning, there's some small grammar changes here. In the prior draft, it said, shall include any new road or improvement to a class 4, I think it said road, but the defined term in statute is class 4 highway. Yep, and it said by a private person. I thought that person other than a municipality would be clear,
Okay.
more clear.
Yes, great. Thank you. Both counts. You're writing all seven that, word.
On page 42, There was- the suggestion from VNRC. So the Natural Resources Board may adopt rules after consulting with stakeholders to have a demonstrated interest in the road rule.
What did it used to say?
If they didn't have anything previously, but this was their interest in having a stakeholder group.
I wanted to see.
Okay, thank you. I never heard anyone argue against inviting people to participate. Because, well, depends what you mean by that, and I take it back.
Can I just ask a
Yes,
question? Sorry, maybe it's all over my Chamber of Commerce. How do you demonstrate an interest? Is that a process, that a defined process, or is it just letting the board know that you're interested?
I don't know.
Call, demonstrated.
Anytime.
I think it's an on phrase. I think on,
And on stage demonstrated?
yeah. I don't know what that means.
Where, okay, so where did the language come from?
Sorry, I wasn't trying to start something.
No, I fought against this yesterday, so I think this is an on phrase. How do you have a demonstrated interest in the road rule? I suppose participating in this hearing is demonstrated interest in the road rule.
Is it not, I think, is it not sufficient to just say consulting with stakeholders? Because
Yeah.
stakeholders inherently have an interest. I think that would be sufficient. But, don't know.
Unless it's your work.
Yeah.
Okay, so we're striking just after consulting with stakeholders, providing better that. Alright. We don't. Thanks for the question. I've never heard the phrase before. Seems like it.
You know,
I don't
drafting's
need a
hard.
novel qualification for participating in state.
No bad ideas.
An appeal maybe, but not. Stakeholder.
Okay. Page 44, But you probably things to say.
I do have things to say on page 24.
Okay, page 44. Can you explain what
25.
we, how about if you explain what's here, and then we'll hear what Federer wants.
So section 25 starts the new tiers. Section 26 is the rulemaking. So on page 44, tier 3. Tier 3 means an area consisting of critical natural resources defined by the rules of the board. The board's rules shall address river corridors, headwater streams, habitat connectors of statewide significance, riparian areas, class A waters, natural communities, and other critical natural resources.
Okay,
It then has new language in the rulemaking section related to this.
mhm,
So subsection A, the land use review board, in consultation with the Secretary of Natural Resources, shall adopt rules to implement the requirements for the administration of the tier 3 jurisdictional trigger and the definition of tier 3. Is the intent of the so I moved first, the intent section to be the second sentence, so that it is the intent of the General Assembly that these rules address the protection of critical natural resources. The board shall review the definition of tier 3 area. And its use in Act 250 and address river corridors, headwater streams, habitat connectors of statewide significance, riparian areas, class A waters, natural communities. Maybe that should be and natural communities. Recommend any additional significant natural resources that should be added to the definition and how to define the boundaries. So I want to just flag, there maybe should be an and on line 1, but then also on line 1, that says additional significant natural resources. The definition on tier 3 over in the prior page is critical natural resources.
okay, so not quite the same language.
Yeah.
Okay, so before digging too far in that.
Yes, thank you. So,
Federer wants-
the VNRC BAFTA agreed upon. The language has a couple of changes to page 46, the couple of paragraphs we just read. So, where it says 46 tier 3,
I think 3 of that.
I am on page 3 of that. So yes, down at the bottom. Would you like this? Do you need it?
Maybe, what? It's on your website,
Yeah, it's on the website, but here.
I'll take it.
So we're on page 3 of this, and so down at the bottom where it says pages 45, 40, 44 and 45. The new stuff is in green, so, and this is based off of the 2.1 version.
Mhm.
So it should just fit right in, but would you want me to read what it says, or?
Sure, but hearing it louder is sometimes just painful.
So it's just mostly just additional language. So tier 3 means an area consisting of critical natural resources defined by the rules of the board. The board's rules shall, this is new, at a minimum, determine whether and how to protect river corridors, headwater streams, habitat connectors, blah, 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 blah. And then after the comma, or other critical natural resources through activity.
Want to pause, if anyone. Find the weather helpful, because there are people who are thinking that putting these areas on the table for consideration implies that they will be identified and will be regulated. And there's, so weather I think is helpful. There's also,
And how?
and how, right? But I mean. Some people I think if they. This meeting the bill comes, it's asserting that we will really. Every one of these things. Because there was also in section 26 that follows, it says. The definition of tier 3 area and its use. which I think that's another thing to come back with this sort of weather notion. And let me just say, I don't know what the right words are, maybe we'll actually have something on the backside of that page. Yeah, so we're good, we get there.
Can I ask about the conjunction?
Sure.
Why is it going from and to or?
Where are you? Because of the weather.
Yeah. On the very last line.
Uh-huh. Or other.
Very last
Well,
on the
it
order.
was, and that would assume that everything is,
Oh, right.
right? And or, or. Because there may be there may be some of these that if. 213 passes, or,
Right.
they'll say, well, this doesn't need to be regulated through. We don't need additional regulatory oversight from Act 50 because we're doing it in this other place. So whether or how or whether.
Well, the weather covers that, doesn't it? The weather is the up or down. Or other critical natural resources.
Whether it is so. Or the unnecessary words, sorry.
Well, we have, I'm not sure who's, we have someone who helped write this. Could you explain the switch from and or, what you were thinking about that you were trying to finesse there?
I could, Senator.
Yeah, thank you, Mr. Fidel.
Thanks, Jamie Fidel with Vermont Natural Resources Council. I think the intent of our suggestion was have the same effect, right? The board can still decide whether there are other features. It was just, I guess, trying to assume out of the gate that there will be others, or pose the question, or there can be others. I think that was all there.
Makes sense to me. Sarah, what's
Do you have a strong sense that if it was and, that would be okay? Or,
and implies something a little different, I think.
I mean, like in grading the importance, I think the first part was a more important suggestion than this part of maybe just semantics, but I think it was just trying to get at. Yeah, there'll be a question, what should be added? And then there's a question, is there anything more? Is there any, how best to word that?
my instinct is to keep the and, the only reason is because it's, I think we're wanting a thumbs up or thumbs down. And possibly protection, like how do we protect them for all of those things? Because I think the or has implications for everything else in the list. We want everything in the list to get a thumbs up or a thumbs down. Or the
I think the or is more ambitious. Because if you have any one of these, you're gonna cheer for it. As opposed to you have to have all of them. You're gonna do.
Oh, no.
Sounds like you're
Well, yeah, you got this, but you don't have that.
Yeah, the first clause of that sentence is more important on that.
What happens?
The board is deciding at a minimum whether it includes any of those things. So the whether there. Yeah. So you've already sanded it down a little bit
Yeah.
on the weather. Yeah. I also sort of was reading it as. Or other natural resources, I think, and does suggest that there is other natural resources they should consider.
so leaving it as or would be okay.
No, I like and better, yeah,
Yeah, I think the intent was what Ellen just said,
yeah.
but I'm not sure what the conjunction is, but that was the intent.
I guess that would be.
Yeah.
Okay.
And in terms of the weather, it's just that we are trying to recognize that. Based on the debate in the House, that there needs to be that thumbs up and thumbs, that's where people are at. It is. I think unusual, but we were just trying to be honest about where the debate has been at about how we're gonna proceed with tier 3.
Okay, So, we'll stick with the new language other than, reverting to and. As Mr. Fidel. The crucial add is the word whether. Okay, and then it couples with that, now let's see what it is.
Okay, so the next bit in A, I'm sorry, maybe you wanna talk about, we actually talked about this.
Okay, so I read, so I do wanna make sure that that sentence does make sense. I mean, the structure of this is a little bit awkward, but it starts with at the bottom of page 44, the board shall review the definition and its use and then address those same resources. Recommend any additional critical natural resources that should be added and how to define the boundary.
Oh, there's some extra language that they're suggesting.
Oh,
Underneath
For the
A.
paragraph. So in the sentence about the intent. Is the intent of the General Assembly that these rules, I mean. Strike address the protection of, must identify critical natural resources to address for protection.
Do we do this?
Sorry,
Oh, I see that.
Oh, it's above.
I got it.
got it?
Yep.
Okay. And then moving on to the next sentence, the board shall review the definition of tier 3 area and strikes a little bit here. And determine the critical natural resources that shall be included in tier 3, giving due consideration to. River corridors, headwater streams, habitat connectors, blah, 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 and then the rest of this.
I would strike the must, just say. These rules. Identify.
Oh, sure. Yeah.
It's our usual, we always, there's a must identify. Everything, but.
Yes, right.
Okay. Identify critical resources area. Yes.
Giving due.
I feel like that, I'm okay with.
Here's a little, I don't know what we're. These rules, what if we just. This phrase to address for protection feels. Unpoetic compared to. To address for protection, it's an odd phrase. Is there any, I'm trying to identify. In some of the General Assembly, these rules identify, how do people identify?
Yeah, well, we already have.
Does it make sense to just remove the to address? So these rules identify critical natural resources for protection.
But isn't it already in 2.1 that the board shall, it already says. It is the intent of the General Assembly that these rules address the protection of critical natural resources. And then it says, why do you need to then say to address for protection? We already said.
Yeah.
So I do think it's okay, so I don't want to say it addressing, it is pointing out that the critical natural resources need to be identified. Because,
Right.
so. I don't mind it as suggested, yeah, okay, I mean, right. You what that word when you turn the verb into a noun, I mean, protect to
What's that?
protection,
No,
so.
yeah, so let's keep going, or that's fine, where,
I think I understand the sentence now. It's just including identified and moving that around so that it makes sense logically in the sentence. So I'm fine with it. And I actually think it would be valuable for us to spell out that we let them to identify them.
yeah, sure. Absolutely, okay, so now the board shall review definition. Determine.
Then we
So, no,
back to the triple I, unless the municipality. Sorry, public, water and public wastewater.
We got there.
Or the area must have soils. Determined. Adequate. For wastewater disposal.
where is, I think you're ahead of us.
He's here. So even though it's prior in this document, it's later in the big bill.
I apologize for.
No, it's a little, we're having to be light on our feet here. Okay, so then the second half of that paragraph, the joint curriculum shall be included, giving due consideration to, okay?
I like the due consideration.
And that same phrase, how, all the way down to define boundary. You're our lawyer, you're reading this, you know the language well, any concerns with this new expression of this?
I mean. I do think it requires a bit more than address. You have to give them consideration. I don't know if there's a substantive difference there, but.
Due consideration, yeah, I don't know what legally that implies,
Well-
wasn't already here. Anyone wanna argue for due consideration? Why? They were gonna be addressed, but due consideration is something more.
I said avoid to say consideration, sort of a weak one. You can, yeah, we consider it inside.
Okay, but someone must be feeling it's stronger, Mr. Fidel.
Well, I. Thanks, I think we were trying to, I mean, if you have to address it, then are you basically saying all of these are automatically part of tier 3? And then the question is, how? Versus going back to that, whether some of these may get chosen, the extent to which will be decided. There are other resources to consider, so it was sort of a nod to say. That list was. Need to be taken seriously, but there's still a determination as far as how and to what extent. If you say address, then I think people will wonder, okay, do we now have to now automatically, it goes back to the point, are we now automatically including this entire list in here? So that's what we're trying to finesse there. And
So the phrase that goes away, and it's used in NBSA chapter 151, really was part of sort of another implicit whether, right?
well, the reason we suggested that too is if you go to the next sections of the rulemaking.
Mhm.
It does address the administration and how the jurisdiction will work. And we thought, really, the first section seemed to be. More or less talking about what are the resources that are going to be first chosen or identified, right?
Okay,
And then you have to figure out, okay, how are they gonna be administered? How's the jurisdiction going to apply? How will they be mapped? Are there other policies or programs that should be considered?
okay.
So,
Well, great, and I think you know that phrase on 45 line 7, when jurisdiction should be triggered. Like a key phrase that I think people have read past. Because they've been. Frankly, writing to me as though. As soon as it's tier 3, it's triggered,
Yes.
and I think we heard some terror. Testimony that suggested. The county, county would be paralyzed by it. I think that was certainly never our intent. I don't think it was ever in the fifth life. Okay, anything else you as a draft need for direction in order to keep going, go back to our, there's one more that's up to. Which changes here.
and that, if I may, was just to Ellen's point that you probably want to have consistency without having different phrases. So we thought critical natural resource was what it was selected in the definition itself, so maybe just better to be consistent.
Well, good. Okay. Thank you, everyone. Off we go. So there's a piece there, it's there. there.
And you caught that in paragraph A also, right?
And in paragraph A.
The,
Right, you can catch
at
that.
the top of page 45 is a significant number, but Ellen already caught that earlier.
Significant, yeah.
Should say critical,
It's critical.
significant.
And it's not in this.
Okay.
There. Sorry, did you get to the change of two?
Yeah.
You did, you got.
Yeah.
Yes.
Okay. Back to you, counselor.
All right,
When's our next, when do we pull over again?
The next one is on page 15.
Okay.
Yeah.
Any,
Sorry to interrupt, there was a minor one on 46 again, this may be just sort of nitpicking, it may not be necessary, but there was. In the working group, for the rulemaking, there was an amendment in the House which added the Department of Forest Parks and Recreation shall be considered as a stakeholder. The secretary, in coordination with the board, is basically working on the rulemaking, but you saw Fish and Wildlife with their role in all of this, or even DEC, that it could be helpful to acknowledge that if you're going to recognize IPR, the other departments of the agency
Yeah.
should play a role, but
so you're saying DEC should be listed on this as well, on page 46, is that your suggestion?
yeah, or Fish and Wildlife, that you not just list one department out of the agency when they all play a role.
Oh.
But again, it may not be necessary, it's just maybe getting,
sorry, what line on the 2.1 draft?
Page 46, line 2.
Line 2.
Yeah.
But also sort of, they had proposed to sort of reconfigure B slightly to sort of rearrange, because this was part of the one of the four amendments. So, yeah, you could do that and also like. For example, the woodland and forestry organizations, and then it goes on to mention. Couple, so. Yeah,
right, in an earlier version of testimony that Brian submitted last week, I think he said like, it could read on line 18, woodland or forestry organizations such as the Vermont Woodlands Association of Professional Logging Contractors of the Northeast. But then if you go down to page 2, the amendment added the Department of Forest Parks and Recreation, but left out like the Fish and Wildlife Department. I'm assuming the secretary will invite or represent Fish and Wildlife, but it just felt a little bit awkward only recognizing one department.
I wonder if we can say A&R of the agency.
Yeah, what is
instead of-
this, bump it up to these natural resources, and they can send whomever they wish.
If you go to the beginning, yeah, I mean. The board shall convene a working group of stakeholders, so then. If the rulemaking under section A is the land use review board in consultation with the secretary.
Yeah.
So that you would think that would cover it,
Yes.
but. To your point, that may be a better way just to have the catch all down below.
So delete Department of Forest Parks and Rec, replace with Agency of Natural Resources.
Well, yeah, so it is like process we manage. It's in the board. What's the board? Ready, see how it's listed. Speaking of letting the secretary decide. And what the right way to take that goes. I don't regret it now. They make it more than one. person they want to change projections or more than more than one.
Bill Cox, next meeting. Cox, next meeting.
Okay, so Mr. Coster, good afternoon. We see you've arrived, so don't be shy, we're editing and people are speaking up as we work. So if I don't see your hand, please sing out.
Great, well, I'll just jump in briefly. Good evening, Billy Coster, Agency Natural Resources.
Okay, there we are we're looking at draft 2.1. And we're on page 45. We're actually talking about the very agency you work at. So there's a working group established, one department is called out. Do you have any Forest Parks Rec in that working group on defining critical resource areas?
Yeah.
Do you want to say, do you want us to just invite the agency in general, or is it too narrow to have listed just one department?
Thank you for the question, Billy Coster, and our apologies for joining late. I've been monitoring your conversation, but just received the link recently, so thanks for that, Jude. It is a little odd to list just one department. So I think you could either just leave it. You could either just have the consultation be with the secretary of the agency as the beginning of the rulemaking section sets forth, or list all three departments down below: FPR, Fish and Wildlife, and DEC. I think either of those options would be agreeable. I think if you want to go with the spirit of the House version, maybe adding the other departments would be the prudent choice.
Okay, so Mr. Chakowski, if you could just add DEC and Fish and Wildlife, we'll plug it the full set. Thank you.
And the only other thing I'll add is I think the secretary requested an opportunity for ANR to participate today, primarily to speak to the tier 3 issue that you just covered, and appreciate the work that VNRC did to offer you some alternative language to the tier 3 definition. I think what you just discussed largely covers the concerns that I would have raised with the draft 2.1 language.
Great. Okay.
Well, thank you.
Thank you. All right. So then I think we're back on. We got that fixed. That's another circle, another flag, and back to next edit 47, unless someone else has something prior.
Right. So it's unfortunate that these two things ended up separated by a page, so I'm sorry, but the bottom of page 47 and 48, there are two sections that the chair requested.
Right.
So first, and you made a request and I made it sort of grammatically a little bit different. So last year in Act 47, something we haven't talked about in a long time was section 19C. That is another one of the sunset provisions. It's a temporary exemption. It has a sunset like the others of July 1, 2026. June 30th, 2026. And that was in a repeal section. Section 19C. So the chair requested extending the sunset, so I decided to repeal the sunset section itself and just build it into the statute like the other sunset provisions have, so that they're in one place.
Great.
So that language is on page 48.
And so by way of explanation to the committee, so we heard GMP, for instance, talking about a plan through 2030 to keep on undergrounding power in their distribution areas, other utilities doing the same. Some people had asked to have it be permanently lifted. Other folks had expressed concerns about, well, might we see some unintended consequences? So my proposal back to the committee is, if we go to 2030, that lines up with the plan that we were presented, and prior to that ever hitting 2030, the question will come back up again, should we look at extending it further? But, given what they've been doing and to the best of my knowledge, about how well it's working, okay, let's move it out. So, and we haven't really talked about it since GMP was in the room a while ago.
I'm a little confused as to, so this is pertaining just to the repeal of the utility, like moving utilities.
Yeah, it's on the next page.
Aha. Oh, okay,
The undergrounding work.
I'm good, thank you. Sure, that's fine.
So, yeah. Previously, in Act 47, the sunset date and the statute were in two different places, and putting them together, the sunset there like the other sunset provisions.
Where you become.
Actually, had something earlier on the page. So if you wanted to, on 40,
I'm 47.
and inside the. But if you want to finish the conversation, it's.
Yeah, so let's wrap this one and then we'll go through that. Any concerns about moving that sunset?
So I just wanted to check because you did not tell me what date in 2030, so I went with January 1, 2030. Is that?
Love it.
Can I propose December 31st, 2030?
2030?
Yeah, because they said they wanted to get it done in 2030, but I feel like that's gonna mean that they need 2030.
Yeah, I don't know if it's
I don't know.
I or in.
Right, right. Inevitably, things are gonna take longer than they expect.
You wanna round up?
Yeah, I wanna round up.
Okay. Call me flexible, December 31st,
That's a long time long.
2030.
Thank you.
Just putting, I'm just building, I'll be credits. Alright, so, we'll have a chance to look at how it's working in between. If anyone had concerns about, oh, that's too far out, then I'm sure that a future Senate Natural Resources Standing Committee will get communication from someone who said, let's reconsider that date. Ms. Sullivan, you had something from different on 47.
So section 27 and 28, I believe are dealing with the interim exemptions. For tier 1 areas.
Yeah,
Almost something. In 16A. The requirement for a jurisdictional opinion. We see the value in absolutely getting the jurisdictional opinion, however, jurisdictional opinion, at least we've seen. With the case with the Evernorth project in Putney can lead to an appeal, which sort of what we're trying to get away from by saying in these tier 1 areas with these interim exemptions, we want to be able to build housing and not have it go through a drawn out appellate process. So some guardrails around, yes, give a JO, but rather than a JO being able to be appealed, could it? If someone wants to raise a challenge, that would get reviewed by the court and not go through an appeal process.
the JO we anticipated a year ago was simply a way to legally validate we were exempted from Act 50 because they looked at your plans and said, oh, you are a private housing project. And so the Putney case seems, I don't know if it's anomalous or what to call it. But have you had any further thoughts? We haven't talked about this to committee. Is there any way? I think the goal is we're trying to make this a way to document that you're a PHP. So that you can keep going on your project. And then you'll have a way to prove that you were exempt from Act 250 should it ever be challenged. The fact that someone's getting challenged on whether or not they're a PHP wasn't something I had contemplated a year ago because it seemed like a black and white condition. Are you in designated area? Are you building affordable housing, whatever those PHP conditions were? Is there any way to make the JO less vulnerable? I'll just make an instructive appeal, as opposed to clarifying that your project is exactly it was made.
So jurisdictional opinions can be requested by anyone at any time regardless of if the statute was there. So if someone was proceeding as though they were exempt without getting a JO, someone could bring one, a request for one, which could also then be appealed.
Okay,
So this is standard, so you have to craft something different. I don't know, this is the first time I'm hearing about this issue.
so unless anyone has a silver bullet in their pocket, I'd say let's flag and keep going. We do have a couple weeks to wait, sign the dotted line, I think. I get it, so that's a useful reminder. This is asking the developer to go get the JO and document their eligibility for the exemption. Someone else, even if it's gone, an imposer to a project could ask for JO, and it could have the same sort of impact on project. So let's put that as a something that haunted us on one project that I don't know if that's unique. So Mr. Gill's in the room, I don't know if you've studied all these permits that are coming through, and that's the only instance of someone trying to take advantage of the PHP and documenting it's actually that predates all, right?
We've had a very short window to
Yeah,
get a data set on that. Yeah.
okay. So, thank you for that, and let's flag it, think, and keep going. Unless someone has, again, that silver bullet in their pocket, Mr. Baker, you're moving your hand, so I'm guessing that means you might it.
There's no silver bullet in that hand, but I do want to flag section 27, which looks like it's kind of the interim exemption. And I think there's been other conversation that is going to change that.
Yeah,
What this
so
says?
we do the 311,
Okay,
um,
so you've already
all
flagged
the
section
20
27.
sections or whatever they are of 311, that when we finish this walkthrough, so they're exactly, there will be things being overwritten when we get to those provisions. Okay. Thank you, Ian. Onward. Wait, you only get to go to 49 before this one highlighting. What's up there?
So next. On tier 1B, so on page 49. To obtain tier 1B status under this section, the Regional Planning Commission shall demonstrate to the board that the municipalities with tier 1B areas meet the requirements for village areas included in 24 VSA 4348 AA 12C. The municipality may apply for multiple non-contiguous areas to receive. I guess that's the wrong phrase there, but may apply,
Or may have.
may have, yeah. May have multiple non-contiguous areas to receive tier 1B status. I can fix that, but
49.
so happens at 9 PM.
Okay. So a municipality may have multiple non-contiguous areas.
Yeah.
Or, well, there's the sentence of those tweets.
Yeah, areas to be received.
To receive,
Yeah,
or receive, just receive.
thank you.
Already, but even before that.
Right.
So, alright. I'm just worried about the grammar in the sentence, but I'll read it again. But otherwise, there's also additional language in D. A municipality that is eligible for tier 1B status may formally request of the board that they be excluded from tier 1B jurisdictional change. If the municipality has elected by ordinance adopted under 24 VSA chapter 9.
This is the opt-out.
Yes.
Yeah. Question.
Consultant, thank you.
And I think there might be some consensus with other groups on this. If We are worried about while I love all municipalities and think they all have the best interest of moving forward, I'll qualify that. Just in case there are any municipalities who may be worried about affordable housing being built in their community and opt out of a 1B because of that. Or just because they were affordable housing everywhere, that if somebody opts out of a 1B, that priority housing projects are still eligible in those areas. If we could add,
If they have all of the designations, right?
yes,
Yeah, so you have to decide, the committee has to decide what they're doing about PHPs.
Right, and people. And all the conversation we've had, so thanks for flagging that, and I think, my sense of the committee is that we want to continue to support PHPs. And find a way to make them attractive, relative to just exemptions, period.
And Mr. Chair, Brian Shu.
Yeah, please.
A little bit of a mistake in this, memo that we did, the first change is from 311. 311, I believe eliminates PHP.
Yeah.
And replaces it with other exemptions. We're suggesting a different type of exemption, to replace the ones in 311 and keep the PHPs. That was the FAFSA and NRC and Chamber, I think all agree on that.
For instance, development of a PHP outside a designated area, as long as it's dense, for instance, 10 acre maximum, that.
So the PHPs are defined as being within certain designated areas.
but if the community chooses not to have a 1B, they're still mapped what that 1B could be. And
The
that-
designation still exists though, they have a neighborhood development area.
Well, they won't have a neighborhood development area at that point, they'll have, they may have a neighborhood. It's a good question,
Oh, there'll be a neighborhood.
so that is the question, I think that is a bigger question. For what you want PHPs to look like starting in 2027.
Okay. So we are gonna move in PHPs from the freedom of process, so let's. Remark it, and reconcile it, when we keep going work. 2 slides on that page. All right. Anything else? Okay. Page 50.
Yeah, you didn't wanna look at, so at the bottom, page 49, there's language there.
Oh, I'm sorry, I right back.
I think we did discuss it this morning, but just, you had requested that for tier 1A, there could be multiple. And they could be submitted with different types.
Right.
Non-contiguous areas.
Non-contiguous areas, which.
Listen, I appreciate being spelled out. I talked to some house members today about how they did not understand that. So.
Great.
So
You're better you than me.
On the next page, B is highlighted. Did we drop something out? Are we moving something up or?
Yes, so section. So in this subsection, which is on page 50 and 51, these are the requirements for tier 1A area. So there was a suggestion from. I'm gonna say BAFTA, but I'm not sure, that the prior, well, and I, that's like the numbering, that they were redundant, and so, yes, one was dropped.
Okay, so Sarah Watson.
Thank you. So on the front page of the suggestions, the bottom, when it says it says here page 53, but for page 50, to obtain tier 1A status, so that corresponds to line 5 on page 50. So there's a whole bunch of changes that they're suggesting to this entire set here.
Is it only ABC or is it also?
It is A, B, and
C, D,
also
E, F.
little one,
yeah, it
two?
affects
I think so.
almost all of there's a little bit of overlap with some of the water stuff, so, just to spell it out, A, that,
I'm sorry to interrupt.
Yep.
Can any of the authors of this just give a little pitch as to what you're assuming and why you're proposing the change, so we get the idea before we look at the words?
I'll start and turn it to Charlie. This is largely what was presented by BAFTA in Charlie Baker's testimony. A couple of little tweaks, the most significant one was they had proposed eliminating what is now E, the wildlife habitat planning protection bylaw, and concerns raised by committee members. We drafted a new E that talks about municipality having identified and planned for the maintenance of significant captured community rare threatened and endangered species located in 1A area, which previously have not covered by other state permits. So replacing that provision with having a wildlife protection bylaw. And then just the rest of it, I'll look to Charlie for kind of simplifying, but also it's still addressing many of the concerns or the issues that were addressed in the House bill.
So we're doing pretty major rewrite of this criteria for all of them, right? So A, we're kind of trying to move past the fact that they have a municipal plan, because that's, and just saying that the boundaries are consistent with the requirements for the downtown village center, for planned growth area, in an approved regional plan, future land use map, with any minor amendments. As Ellen noted, we're striking paragraph B with the edit to paragraph C, that the municipality has adopted flood hazard and border bylaws. We were proposing to delete the capital budgeting requirement and the permanent, which is paragraph D, and E, the permanent zone and subdivision bylaws. In replacing that with a paragraph to place what is F, with that they have permanent land development regulations, and then leaving the rest of the language alone. Sorry, and then historic preservation, just compatibility criteria rather than what we had proposed, rather than what was there. Wildlife, as Brian just described. And then some also changes in water, wastewater criteria there. So it was a whole lot that we did talk about. I can't remember, yesterday, Friday, Thursday, sometime last couple days.
And why are you going from permanent zoning and subdivision bylaws to land regulations?
That was just to be more generic, just because we have municipalities that are, and we're trying to be more inclusive, I think, because we have municipalities that are doing variety of different land development regulations. Yes, a lot of them are subdivision and zoning, but some of them are doing form-based codes or unified development codes. So we're just trying to be more inclusive.
And that's an issue that I'm gonna raise related to 1B, to another change to what we have proposed. So I'll wait until that.
so, but you support this?
Yes. I guess I'll raise it now, and there's a reference in 1B to a statutory, the land development regulations. It's important for us to make sure that they meet the Act 250 criteria as in towns. And that traditionally has been that they have both zoning and subdivision regulation. Several years ago, when Chapter 117 was updated, a lot of towns were doing unified bylaws. In Act 250, we were very careful to make sure that they recognize the unified bylaws being both of those. So statutory references in that reference to land development codes references both the subdivision provision and the zoning provision. Which that's just
Thank you. Council, any feedback to the committee on this formulation of
Yeah, I mean, I was just gonna point out that that's not standard for 10-acre town. And it seems like it's been like one of the consistent requirements So I just wanted to make sure you understood that. And then,
Right, then it's a lot of other material.
yeah,
Did you receive this as a Word doc?
I don't know.
Yes.
Okay. Even if we're gonna use this material, then. We're all over. Okay, yes. Here. If there are not any committee concerns, then I think. Let me just check, are people comfortable swapping that language?
I would like to have a couple more conversations offline about the 10 acre town issue, but I'm okay with it otherwise.
And I'll just say, just for context, I mean, these are the municipalities that are far beyond the 10 acre, 1 acre town, right? These are our biggest, most sophisticated municipalities. So and we just don't see that as an issue because that's the low bar. These towns are beyond that.
However, we still want to be sure that they are considered 10 acre towns according to that equity fifty. And that a statutory change to accomplish that.
That's fine. If you want to keep E, it really is not important.
Keep. E is in permanent zoning and subdivision
Right.
bylaws that do not include broad exemptions from food supply.
And that would be our preference. I don't think it's going to change anything on the
Yeah.
ground.
They will not.
Okay.
See, it's, but it's still somewhat not.
Yeah. Yeah, that's,
Yeah.
Good catch, Mark.
that's, it is. Thank you. Only points, okay, so we have that reconciliation squared away. Chair Watson?
Thank you. With keeping E, I mean, in version 2.1, the next couple of paragraphs,
Right, you
dominant I, 2, 1, 2, and 3 are under right, E, but in the suggested language here, they're called out as their own at the same level as E, as the letters. So if we put E back in, like, I guess we're leaving it structurally, do you know what I'm asking?
I don't think it makes a difference. I think
Okay.
advice.
Never mind, let's leave it as up.
Right. Thank you for the contributions, council, we got it. Squared away, okay,
We got like an hour 15,
We could do it.
so
we're.
maybe we
Moving
could,
along.
maybe we could. I'm open to the flag thing at this point, because I'd really love to get through this bill in the next hour and 15 minutes if possible.
Well, you're not alone,
Great,
you're in good company.
okay, I have no comments. Until.
Right, so next is. You have another?
I do, sorry,
I
okay,
know it's in you.
well, because I'm, you know,
I
feeling
am,
it's
and I.
Yep, so-
Cause I can't.
and it's all good, so, okay, page 51, since we are keeping, F. What is currently F, they just suggest taking out the word permitted. And before water and wastewater systems. And there's a whole bunch of instances after in section 46 that recommend striking the word municipal. I guess that's sort of a slightly different topic, but sorry, that permitted was one,
Okay, so
was one thing.
46 is same idea, but it's coming up. Okay.
Yeah.
Any problem then with striking in F whatever, wherever it lives, even all that changes to the word. Permitted but also it inserts the word public. Yeah.
Oh, sorry, yes, public, I missed that, the swaps.
Okay,
Swaps for public.
And just to clarify, that was just trying to get consistent statutory referencing with public water systems.
great. Onward and upward. Okay, council, that takes us to A very benign update, page 57.
Oh, and this is not even an update, I actually just wanted to. I've been trying to decide how to deal with this issue of the designation of chapter 76A and 39. 139, so I think I'm gonna put an or. Or and. And between those two instead of striking one.
Okay, got it.
I'm really stressed out about those two.
Yeah. Okay,
Page 58, we already did discuss any reasonable action to enforce.
yeah. 61, development, we're getting the prior.
It's the development review. This is a report, and so. Recommending statutory changes to address fragmentation of rural and working land while allowing for development.
62, the word rural.
Struck, do you wanna guess?
Hold on.
It was vital,
They're fine.
vital role.
Missing word, it's like,
Sorry,
this
yes.
is like a surprise, like, what other word was rural?
Vibrant.
Ask, job, okay, got it.
Yeah.
We know they're violent, all right, onward and upward, there's an on the bottom, that's just a typo.
Agriculture.
Oh, right, got it. Okay,
On page 64, as we talked about this morning, I moved the department's new file just to this section.
okay,
65 was just some grammar things. Downtown centers. And then should be was in there twice.
okay,
All right, page 72.
nice. Brown.
So first, there's a change to the land use review board. And then the other thing that is happening on page 72, so this is in the regional plan adoption. So there's a lot, on line 7, there's some highlighting, which is, I guess, misleading, because it's not showing things that are missing now. So previously, it said the Agency of Commerce and Community Development shall coordinate with other state agencies. So the department just recommended that the board coordinate with the other state agencies since it is a state agency. And that ACC should have an excise role on that, an extra role in that.
Okay.
So that was a proposal from them.
Any. These other. It should,
Grandma's bottom 73 was just a grammar thing. Process for updating designated area boundaries. Sort of. And then same on 75, changed there to its.
now the community investment.
Is that what it was? It was something. Each. One. Oh, it was the land use review board notifying itself.
Oh, thank you.
Yep. And some of the land use review boards are highlighted, but not all of them. Okay, so then on page 76, this was sort of another grammar thing that came up. And I don't think you asked for it specifically, but. So I was rereading this because the department in objections, the department had proposed getting rid of the objection process. I did not put that suggestion in here. However, I did add some just clarifying language so that it makes a little more sense. So participation, so someone can object if they participated in the regional plan adoption, so participation is defined as providing written and oral comments stating objections for consideration of the public hearing. I don't know if that makes it clear, the department, I think in their proposal, the department had considered whether or not someone could participate and like, this is great, and then out of nowhere, they're like, wait, now we object.
Okay, so we're trying to push people to start specifying the basis for an objection.
And so I thought it was implied that someone participating would be stating their objections. So that's why I thought adding it there made it a little more clear, but maybe it doesn't.
It's good. Okay, I'm gonna just circle it for myself, maybe others, and think about hypotheticals, but I think for now, I'm probably not done.
Yeah, I think we support that change.
Mr. Chair.
You know what?
I realize it's kind of a random one, but did we ever actually do what the Natural Resources Conservation Districts want us to do with including them in different sections of this bill?
No, I don't have that. Do you happen to have a note to yourself where they
I
might?
have it in a lot of different places. Basically, their request was to just add them where relevant in the bill, that's my understanding.
Okay,
Into the different reports, the different groups and all of that. And I had forgotten about that request.
okay.
It's been going on. And
I'm trying-
maybe it's more of a, I just wanted to bring it up since it was
Yeah.
asked of us. So I can, the executive director had sent us a note, which basically has all the places to see it.
Okay.
Um,
So how about you send that to, I'm gonna put that on the category of. Finish the bill, come back, part of like an amendment. It's a leaf end, not like a showstopper, kind of save the mostly showstopper.
I'm forwarding,
I'm not
forwarding the
missing the importance
thing.
of it in any way.
I appreciate that, and I've just sent the email to you and council saying loose end.
Okay, and it was NRCD
It is, yeah,
edition. Okay. Thank you very much.
like they wanna be notified for public hearings, stuff like this.
Okay,
On page 77, on line 6. The designated representative shall have participated in the regional plan adoption process. And in the prior version, there was a cross-reference to subsection E1, which does not exist. So, I wasn't sure where to cite for the whole process, so I just struck a cross-reference. And I changed the cross-reference on line 17. On page 78. A minor amendment to a future regional land use area shall not require an amendment to a regional plan and shall be included in the next iteration of the regional plan. At the bottom, line 21 on page 78, this again, I think is a clarification. We've talked about this a little bit this morning. If a regional planning commission is unable to obtain affirmative determination, the plan shall be considered unapproved. And a member municipality shall lose any associated benefits. You could just probably stop there, but it spells them out. So then the things that are in yellow in the next, maybe in like most of the rest of them are suggestions that came from the department. And as I sort of mentioned this morning, I incorporated things that you have sort of talked about, but they had a lot of changes. So I incorporated some of them.
okay, and the filter for some of them were the ones that seems to with what we've already
Yes.
discussed. Yeah,
So like small word change on page 80, support compact centers, that's small word change.
Sarah, what?
Thank you. On page 85, is the first instance of changing a municipal to public on line 3. And then again, on page 85, line 20, municipal to public.
What was this one?
Second was on line 20 of 85.
You?
You don't want it to say municipal.
Right.
So the couple of changes before that were from the department. I think they're fairly sort of small. Well, first on page 84, that was, I think it was vibrant. Is that, yes, vibrant is gone. And then the department asked to mention historic and non-historic, so. Under downtown and village centers, it's the downtown or village centers that are traditional and historic central business and civic centers. And then for planned growth areas, it says they are a mix of historic and non-historic, so sort of a distinction here between these two types of areas. On page,
Hartford.
I know, I was thinking of Hartford too.
aren't you always?
I am. I was picturing the two, yeah.
I've also been trained always.
Is there going to be discussion someday about what is traditional and what is historic? What is the difference?
Not today.
Not today.
Sorry. Senator Watson, and Senator McDonald.
Thank you, page 86. The bottom, I know I'm skipping ahead a little bit here, but where we start with C village areas. This is another area, part of our set of suggestions. Though I will admit that it is a little confusing because the line that is proposed to be struck here, I think is already gone.
Yeah, so probably, because like yesterday you did discuss taking back those suggestions in village areas.
Okay.
Which I did.
But then there's another couple of suggestions that they have, which are on page 87. And Romanet 2. The municipality is it suggests removing the bylaws instead land development regulations.
Oh, the more generic.
Yeah, and then on 3. Public. This is not. Lining up as. Oh,
Oh, it's down farther than 4.
oh, 4, that's why.
It should be for. Municipal wastewater. So municipal water goes away in just public water,
I
but it's a step for municipal wastewater.
think that is. Waste.
Because I don't know, Mr. Baker.
A really minor cleanup in the new paragraph 4, that I think that last phrase 4 land use bylaws could be struck. Because we already addressed
Yeah.
bylaws in the previous
Yep,
couple of,
page 87.
yeah.
Yep. And
Page 87.
so, sorry, public water or public wastewater in that paragraph.
Okay.
Okay, I think that's it.
Do you have other instances, we've been doing water, do we have other instances of municipal wastewater that we should be thinking of?
They're typically 85.
Well, okay, that's the word.
Always.
Sorry, Senator McDonald, back on 85, what was it?
Line 20, the area is served by public water or wastewater infrastructure. It's one or the other, or? It doesn't have to be both?
No,
There's one baby, right? No.
uh. We would often talk about it, okay, so. When we are talking about here, the requirements for. Plain growth areas. Plain growth area.
We've been saying that if it has a wastewater system, even if it's an overflow, you can do it. Now you don't even have to have the wastewater system.
Mr. Baker, can you help us out why it's an or when we're so often used to seeing
You're-
and.
Yeah, and I just want to clarify, it's or in our mapping, it's and for the full one A designation.
Okay, and where? So. Using the this, how's that applied to where we are at the moment?
Yeah, we were just trying to be a little more flexible on this, but not being determinative of the one A exemption.
So one A areas would not necessarily, like planned growth areas would not qualify you
For
for
one A,
1A.
automatically, right, but they would qualify for one B, so that's why we're lining up
Right,
with
and-
the or.
Right, and so we've talked about 1B as having one or the other.
That's right.
And so, but to be clear. I think we need public wastewater infrastructure,
That's fine.
right, as opposed to like no wastewater.
Yeah. With that, or private septic systems.
Yeah.
But it's or,
That's right.
so it doesn't matter whether it's public or whatever, if they don't have it.
Right, it's, I think it's intended to be more of an indication of the level of development in an area.
We did take testimony, you don't have wastewater infrastructure, but your soils are determined to accommodate stuff.
Sure.
That would be it.
And
But
Yeah, so I take your point and because we're. Always tricky when there are ellipses preceding, so. Hey, future. I don't know what's that. The section we're in is about mapping or determination. So this is just
Future land
map.
use map. Yeah.
The one of the cornerstones of this whole discussion had been that you can get Act 250 exemption clause. The municipality will provide environmental protection as good as Act 250, or that the infrastructure exists that addresses those problems. So we've got to be very careful that, that has been a topic all throughout this thing is, we're not giving up anything on the environment, this, we're just making it more local, and it moves fast, so we've got to make sure that's actually local.
So for mapping, if this is a criteria for getting classified as one B during the mapping phase of things. And it's only four, then are we saying that? In terms of doing a project, you're gonna be subject to review on both of those conditions? I'm just losing the thread of the.
This is mapping at the regional scale, right?
Okay.
Lining up with the town. If a project comes through, they obviously have to get water, wastewater permit
Right.
of whatever sort they need to go through that. So, I guess that was never a question in our mind.
Yeah, okay, great, I get it. So for now, this is like mapping the resources.
Yeah,
You can be you can be a one B. But when a project comes on, there's going to be a determination. Here's our hero.
like,
Shucks, the ruining, wait, if this thing has to say past 7, I'm not.
Thank you, Senator Rose.
Okay. But like, it's right here, so I'm sorry, I'm stopping what I'm doing anyways.
Yes.
so pretty good.
Since we're not allowed to stop working, you be in charge of food, we'll keep food. All right, so that gets you in on the mapping. When your project comes along, it will get reviewed for just. All right, thank
If
you.
if there is a municipal or wastewater or whatever, they'll show up on the map.
Right,
If there's only one of them, show up.
right. But when you do your project, you're gonna have to satisfy fulfill both requirements.
So what's the significance of the map? I thought the map was. A map of what qualifies for the.
And part of it is a map of potential, right? But you already have one of these.
If the map say no wastewater system exists,
I think we just wanna hear. So Mr. Baker's been involved in the mapping, it's an asset that's there and you're mapping assets. Right?
Yeah, and we're talking about the base level 1B, right, which is, you've got some infrastructure, you've got your zoning and things, I'm looking really at page 87. Where you got your data plan, you've got bylaws, you've protected the flood zones. You have some level of infrastructure, water or wastewater, and then there's, it looks like some editing has been done here, they have some opportunity for infill and new development areas. Where it can be flood resilient. So those were what we've been talking about from the time of the studies through this whole thing, kind of the minimum bar for 1B, 50 unit exemption.
So now we're up to 88. And that's where actually I start to have things marked up from this morning.
It's an instance of replacing municipal with public on line 4.
Sorry, thank you. Thank you very much. Sorry. Temporarily distracted, I did. 1-4 was?
Oh, municipal, it's a municipal water, wastewater, we just want to replace the public.
You're accepting nourishment.
What are we talking about? I'm gluten intolerant, so no, once again. Oh, the rude. I just brought my own gluten-free pizza today because I knew I was gonna be here all night, so there's some waiting for me in my office. And I will continue to work on this until all eats.
How about free Sprite?
Do you want a Sprite or Coke? You know how much soda I already drank today. Thank you, I'm gonna continue, you all can have your mouths full,
Okay.
and I will continue to talk.
Here's an advantage, we won't be able to ask questions while they're happening.
So, I mean, I do wanna flag that, I've already mentioned this, some of these things we talked about this morning. So like on page 88, this morning we decided to unstrike that language that's highlighted. And on page 89, we already talked about this morning as well, for hamlets may sometimes, or perhaps may include church went to place of worship. Sometimes went to some, and also may.
Yep.
So we have those were changes laid out, some of these other things are primarily coming from the department. Page 90 is the name change for the board. Also on page 90, areas eligible for designation as centers shall be identified on the regional planning future land use map. The areas eligible for designation as a neighborhood shall be identified. So this kind of goes back to what you were talking about a minute ago. So what's happening here is that this sentence is broken into 2 sentences. Designated centers are being identified as downtown centers and village centers, which are categories in the regional map. Neighborhoods are those that are being identified as planned growth areas and village areas. And neighborhoods is spelled wrong. So The department, again, as was talked about this morning, proposed a date of December 31st, 2025. For when the old program of designation will end and the new designation, so all designations prior to December 31st, 2025. So then on page 91. The department had this proposed strike, so. With the exception of pre-existing non-conforming designations approved prior to the establishment of the program. Under chapter 139. Or areas included in the municipal plan for the purpose of relocating a municipality center for flood resiliency. The areas eligible for designation benefits. Upon board's approval. Oh, there's a typo there.
Surrender.
Yeah, well, that's what happens.
Yeah.
For designation center shall not include development that is disconnected from a downtown or village center. And that lacks an existing or planned pedestrian connection to a center via a complete street. I'm not entirely sure why they struck that language on lines 4 through 6, which is why I left it. I mean, on one hand, it's just saying non-conforming designations. But I wasn't entirely sure. That's why I left it struck.
We're trying to figure out what exactly we're losing, and why we would do that.
Yeah, my impression is that they were concerned about these new centers that weren't historic traditional centers. And so they wanted to strike that. I hope that doesn't negatively impact any municipality, but.
Any concerns about following that department's agency lead? Okay. Thank you.
Alright. So.
There we go.
Feel like I'm falling here, on the cover page is back. Page 87. Line 16. The municipality has one of the following. I have tried to number the following, for 1 being municipal water, 2 being wastewater. 3 being land use bylaws. Is that, do we really need to say it has to have one of those 3 things?
We're striking the reference to land use bylaws.
Okay, so now it's just one of 2 choices. This is for mapping.
Yes, so this is for tier 1B.
It's mapping. Means.
So this is for mapping, however, this is one of the categories that translates directly to an Act 250 exemption, which is the tier 1B exemption.
So if you don't have wastewater, you can still get an exemption.
Yes.
If you don't have bubble water, you can still get an exemption.
Yes.
But if you don't have both, you can't get an exemption.
It's an or. So you have to have one or the other.
And we've stricken all the words land use bylaws.
Yeah, because they're covered above.
Okay, you move the or to be between municipal and wastewater.
Yes.
Okay. So can we just say the municipality has public water for wastewater? If that rephrase one of them goes away.
Yeah.
Yeah, okay, thank you.
Thank you.
But I'm just looking forward to page 98, hopefully.
Whoa, 98, cool. Yes. So This morning we did talk about the repeal.
334 is a great number for the moment.
Yes, it is. Then the department, as I mentioned this morning, proposed changing community investment to community revitalization. I did not make that change though.
It was sticking. We have in a lot of places. Another non-showstopper.
They also proposed adding this language, on page 89. The program shall extend access to benefits that sustain and revitalize existing buildings and maintain the basis of the program's primary focus on revitalizing historic downtowns, villages, and surrounding neighborhoods by promoting smart growth, development patterns, and historic preservation practices vital to Vermont's economy, cultural landscape, equity of opportunity, and climate resilience. This is describing what this program is overall in this chapter.
Okay, one of these things is not like the other, but let's keep going. Yep, feels. Yeah.
So. You should convert that for the statement.
Things. Okay. Blurb, I love that.
LURB is officially making its debut as an acronym there. We're all really excited about it.
Linear strip.
Well, yeah, I didn't get to linear strip lately, or yet, linear strip.
Page 101.
I will get to it later. Yes.
Floor repair.
The portion of which is listed for eligible for listings in the National Register of Historic Places. Okay.
Sorry, I did just want to point out in sprawl repair, the definition has, the department proposed to change the definition slightly.
Are we in lines 13 to 15 on 101?
Yeah, so there was additional language after the word principles. Not sure how much this matters because it only has appeared, I think, once, but department proposed striking and is served by a complete street connecting to a proximate center and served by sewer and water infrastructure. That's what sprawl repair is. But the department proposed to strike that, and so it's just redevelopment of lands, development of buildings, traffic, circulation, parking, and other land coverage. In a pattern that is consistent with smart growth principles.
Again, the smart growth principles include pedestrian connections.
Yep.
Yes.
Covered. Thank you.
And then, yeah, add in the reference.
Grammatical. Sprawl repair means the redevelopment of lands with buildings, traffic, circulation, parking. Consistent with smart, but that second line of development. Describe what it could be understood to describe the land's present condition when we redevelop them. In other words, they're already developed. So it's
Yes.
with buildings, so we probably want to drop that second development.
No, I mean, I think that is what it intends to say, is that they are already developed.
And they're already developed with buildings, traffic, circulation, parking or other land coverage pattern that is consistent with smart growth. So why are we redeveloping?
Okay.
I see what you're saying, it's.
I think this definition is not great entirely, but. The state designated downtown or village, there's adding reference to a portion of which is listed or eligible for listing.
So. I'm gonna mark that paragraph that when you're doing your editing. Sometimes you feel things awkwardly expressed or whatever. Or Senator McCormick canceled something, so when you rewrite that, feel free to make improvements,
I don't think I have any.
okay?
Next. In 13.
And you have some, make a suggestion for this thing? What do you? If you have something right there, let's. Jump in.
I wonder if we just moved the with smart growth principles further up. So it reads, follow power means redevelopment with smart growth principles. I'm sorry, means the redevelopment of lands with smart growth principles, the land currently developed with buildings, blah, blah, blah. No, never mind, that doesn't work, it's not sufficient.
But Mark and I are the only ones in this room old enough to have diagram sentences.
Wrong.
Or diagram.
That was the shocking response.
I know, all day.
No, I don't even do cursive.
But you have used the pencil,
Thank goodness.
there you go.
I don't make mistakes.
Okay,
Next.
so, yeah, I guess there's a certain awkwardness going on.
Yeah.
There was additional language at the top of page 102 that the department proposed to be struck. And I think they largely moved it to that first definition on the program overall. Yeah, because it's got the vital and the vibrant.
Not a lot of forbidden
Yeah.
words, but. At this point, they're not.
Yeah. Should we move on? I mean, I think these are mostly small
Yeah,
on this.
yeah, let's, I'm not seeing many designated one. Page 106 exclusions.
This was the only one that didn't have a subheader, so added exclusions as a subheader.
Okay,
And then down in transition is a section that the department did propose to rewrite. So all designated downtowns, village centers, or new town centers existing as of December 31st, 2025 will retain current benefits until December 31st, 2026. Or approval of the future of the regional plan and future land use maps by the blurb, whichever comes first. All existing designations in effect on December 31st, 2025 will expire December 31st, 2026. If the regional plan does not receive approval. All benefits for unexpired designated downtowns, village centers, new town centers that are removed shall remain in effect until July 1, 2034. Prior to June 30th, 2026, no check-in or renewal shall be required for pre-existing designations. New applications for downtowns, village centers, and new town centers may be approved by the board prior to the first public hearing on the regional future land use map or until December 31st, 2025, whichever comes first.
and all these variables could be adjusted, so, you know. Yeah, that's thinking downstream, but where it looks like it's good.
Is everything fantastic? Gosh, I'm not sure why they have first public hearing of the regional plan rather than like approval of the regional plan.
Sorry, where are you?
Top 107,
107,
line 2 and 3.
first public hearing as opposed to approval.
Yeah, just raising a concern. I'd rather that they have the option until the regional plan is approved and the new, 1B designations, et cetera, happen.
I mean, I guess that's. At that point, they should be on notice that they are going, like.
Yeah.
Be eligible soon, like you'll be in the process.
That's what scares me, is the soon. I'm just worried that we're required to have 2 public hearings, we have a bunch of comments that may take us months to address.
Yeah.
Before we have the second public hearing and adopt, so. And I'm a little concerned about that date a little too early, maybe second public hearing?
I guess it would just surprise me if towns sought to go through the old designation process rather than wait for the new designation process,
Right.
which is significantly easier.
Yeah, and I'm just concerned about the number of months that could happen between first public hearing and approval.
So you would, from your experience, you'd rather have that marker be the approval?
Yeah, I think so.
Okay, well, you're involved in the process, so. How would you read it? So prior to approval of the regional future land use map?
Wouldn't that require you to potentially to change the map though?
The approval?
No. If they get designated and it's not on your map,
Oh, is that the direction I was thinking about it from?
maybe.
That could be.
Okay, so let's look that, and hoping ACCD is listening, and we'll get more info.
Is Mr. Coster still on?
I don't have, putting it with his name, I hear. Thank you. Thank you. So let's do this.
Yeah, so also on page 107, so the department shall issue a written administrative decision within 30 days following application. If a municipal application is rejected by the department, the municipality may appeal the administrative decision to the board. To maintain a downtown approved under chapter 76A after December 31st, 2026. Municipality shall apply for the renewal following a regional plan approval by, that should be the letter, and meet program requirements. So I think that was just restating what was already implicit.
So when you're saying things review for your, that line 11 there,
Yeah,
yeah.
no, I'm on line 14.
Oh. Say for above is the CIB.
In the what?
CIB,
Yes. CIV.
right?
Can I ask the process question?
Yes, ma'am.
Observing that we have about half an hour before 7, and then if it. I think if we get to page 129, and it's smooth sailing after that.
Well, that's all there is.
Right. In terms of changes, one possibility is that we get to incorporation of 311 tonight.
Yeah.
Or we stay longer, or we can try to incorporate 311 tomorrow.
I will not be able to stay with that.
Okay, so let's get everything we possibly can done in that, and then, trying to think of how to have that sort of on the deck, in front of us.
Counter offer.
Counter offer, yeah, you're the one.
February 11th, because tomorrow you have booked me for the whole morning. So if you need me to make changes tomorrow morning,
Yes.
I can do that tomorrow morning. But you probably want to see language tonight.
Sure, okay,
Everyone should read the last 10, 15 pages of changes, so that tomorrow you can discuss them.
right, we're not making many changes, okay, so that makes sense, thanks, Senator Watson, for looking downstream. Reason closing ceasing right here.
Yeah.
Okay, and where's the clean break, bottom of 107?
Yeah, because that's where we start with the steps.
Yeah.
Okay, great, so we'll. Switch gears, everyone has a copy of 311. I'm gonna put the resume flag here. We want to wait. It may not actually be there anymore, because well, that's moving, but we'll know it different. Okay, so everyone who's here should dig out your copy of S311 draft 3.1. I think that's the cleanest.
And your outline.
In your super outline, encoder ring. Sure. But my document as well, you had a lot of accessories for it.
No,
Okay.
there's one for 687.
Yes. And just to be sure, which one is that was in front of you.
Yes. As voted out of Senate Economic Development on February 16th.
Oh, look at my copy though. Wonderful. You can borrow mine. So she
Okay.
goes on website.
So,
I'm just gonna put it up now.
Okay.
Putting it on the website.
yeah,
We have.
so for anyone who's following, we're switching to SB11. Draft 3.1 voted out 2/16/24, 1:25 p.m. It's going up on our website right now.
It takes a few minutes.
And may not show up immediately. Senator White,
Nope.
what?
Thank you. I'm just jumping in. Okay, so with section 2, that's where you're jumping in? You wanna do anything easier first? No. Section 1, the short title? Well, let's not do that, okay. I mean chronologically, right?
Sure.
So the agreed upon language between Beth and BNRC has some, I assume this, what is proposed here is basically strike all language for section 2.
Yeah, and I'm not sure that it wasn't necessarily drafted to be compliant with statutory guidelines, drafting guidelines, I'm not sure. About that, but just proof some of that, we felt as though the home bill last year, made adequate provision for housing. We understand that the legislature is committed to doing some type of temporary or short-term exemptions to take place prior, because it's gonna take time for tier 1A and tier 1B to roll out. So we talked about that and thought the best way, if the legislature wanted to do temporary exemptions, was to mimic 1A and 1B on a temporary basis. And we agreed to these standards. In effect, 1A would be land within a half mile of a designated downtown, one of the 2 or so largest municipalities in the state. And allowing up to 75 units, which is consistent with the exemptions with 311. And then for interim tier 1B, within a quarter mile of a village center, up to 50 units on 10 acres or more. And that was close to what BAFTA had proposed. We amended tier 1A to put a cap on the number of units.
It also seems like it's helpful if we're gonna evolve from one system to the other, that we're sort of letting out that flesh concept. And what?
Thank you, I like this proposal, I might only just add, perhaps a sentence to both of those that would say something like, because there's a half a mile boundary and the 1 1/4 mile boundary in the other, that the half mile and the quarter mile does not need to be within the contiguous, like it does not need to be contained within the municipality. So if that half mile, quarter mile went across a municipal boundary, that is acceptable.
It's what? Going across the woods.
If the half mile or quarter mile buffer crosses a municipal boundary, that is. Okay.
Their next town?
Mhm.
I think that makes sense. We have some cities that have, like Winooski is completely surrounded by Colchester, yeah, or Rutland Town. Yeah.
Does. So the general thinking is, this is a plus for people who wanna do development, I'm just wondering. If it crosses a municipal boundary, are we sort of forcing on the next municipality over a different set of conditions in terms of how housing's reviewed, approved, et cetera, et cetera.
That's fair. I mean, I think maybe my interest is also, my preference would be to make it across municipal boundaries, but I hear you about the like forcing somebody else to do something they didn't sign up for. So I think as long as we just have clarity around that, as long as within. I'm just thinking about places where that half a mile or quarter mile does cross a municipal boundary. Do we want them to be in or out? That's all.
What do we say?
Give it the neighbor an option.
Yeah, exactly. Could,
The neighboring town.
Yeah.
Yeah, like if they thought it was a plus, they could say, oh, let's spend the lifting for
but
us, we're in.
who does the regular?
But I don't know how that, I'm not a.
And the equation is that we're backing off back to 50 because the municipality is gonna say, well, take care of it. Now, if you're talking about land that's in another municipality, yeah, then that other town is not.
I'm trying to leave it out, as long as we just clarify what happens in those situations.
And what happens in those situations?
That this half a mile, quarter mile boundary, if we want to leave out surrounding municipalities, so they didn't sign up for this. That we say,
We need a qualifying phrase.
right, half mile boundary,
With you, but
provided it is within the municipal boundary.
If, Mr. Baker, you think about it tomorrow and say, oh, this, we're missing an opportunity to help, St. Albans City, St. Albans Town, every town as a city. Woodies, whatever, Virgins, 1 mile square, if you could ruminate on that and think about how we might sort that out and when that makes sense, but otherwise, I think. Sort of the prudent thing is not to do it so much, maybe they can, maybe they'll get on their coattails, but we're not. Doing it to them, okay?
Yeah, and a concern of ours would be that whatever town they read to make a town. Like Rutland Town, for example, is not a Jamaica town. An example of like in the spells.
Okay. Right? But we would want us. To add a line that clarifies that it needs to be. That this formulation is within the boundaries of a single municipality. In one meeting, okay? Further, so we also have a threshold here. The interim tier 1A. Interim tier 1B. Quarter mile, same thing.
Can we not call them interim tier 1A and B in the statute?
What were you, oh,
Can we just make them exemptions? Like why?
I see.
They're not called anything in 311.
Yeah.
Sure. Yet again, super awesome. All right.
Well, I think they're rough, so because you're about to talk about tier 1, interim tier 1B is. And tier 1B, as we discussed yesterday, is probably roughly gonna be village centers. I want to clear about it if tier 1A is going to cover. I don't want people assuming that those, like, these areas are the exact areas that are gonna become tier 1A and B, that's all my. Cause
They may not meet the requirements ultimately.
yes,
We're not wedded to the term. I think that was wanted to get it out. It's like,
like illustrative.
It was our recommendation to just try to get people thinking about 1A and 1B. But it's a good point, Alan, that there may be some places that they don't actually meet the requirements for 1A.
But as you explain this, I think, I mentioned this when I testified, when Senate Economic Development took it up, we didn't even know what 1A and 1B was gonna be. They were picking numbers and without that knowledge, basically. So I think it's good to explain it that they're they should be relatively synced up with one A and one B, but it's true, they may not be qualified in the end, right?
Yeah.
Okay. Great. So that. All right, so we have those two.
So.
And I don't know how those sit compared to section 2, just looking.
Oh, yeah, in section 2, the outline is not as detailed as it could be. So, yeah, so section 2 in S 311 has 3 things happening, or more than 3 things. But in a town with zoning and served by municipal sewer and water infrastructure, 75 units of housing can be constructed. Or 74 units before triggering Act 250. Then in towns with zoning. But without water, sewer, 30 units. And then towns with no zoning and no.
Okay.
Water, 10 units.
So water, sewer. We're talking about 10-acre town. That has water and sewer. And this is without restriction, so we're not saying within a designated area. This is just,
Correct.
you have water, you have sewer. Does the site itself have to be served by water and sewer, or just that somewhere in the town there is municipal water and sewer?
Good question. They went back and forth about that.
I mean, if you're talking about in an area served by, very different in my mind than just saying if your town has that. For one, 75, it's this is anecdote, not science, but 75 new units anywhere in a town that have that seems like
I do think it is, I know it's not the best drafting, because it was a bit of a, constructed or maintained on tractor land served by. So I think there's an inference that the tract has to be served by. But we did go back and forth from there about whether it was the whole town or just the area.
Is the notion, Mr. Chair, that the, whatever is gonna be built would have access to this,
that
the
infrastructure.
thing that it has.
Yeah.
That makes it eligible?
Well, that's the nature, I would say informally, that's the conversation I've always heard, like, oh, there's capacity there to build more houses, because we already have water, sewer. We're already permit planning, zoning. Bylaw, subdivision bylaws. So the idea that the town would have those, but you could then go anywhere you want and build 65 units is with no review. During the interim, like all the things we're building into the years. Don't even apply. So it's giving me pause about that number.
It's reversal is what we've been doing elsewhere.
Right, because we're also not constraining ourselves. But to, there's no density required here either.
If you look at
Is there?
1B, the interim 1B, I know it's not really what we're calling it, but in this language.
Yeah.
Then it is up to 50 units on 10 acres or less.
Sure, no, I'm not looking at back at 311.
Right, I guess, sorry. My suggestion would be to replace a lot of this language with this other.
Oh, that's the 1, 2, 3.
Yeah,
flavor.
yeah, exactly,
Okay.
because this.
Well, I thought you were saying, put these in, and now we have these. Follow.
No,
Yeah,
yeah,
okay.
like this is what replaces that, my reading of it.
Okay.
Yeah.
That is our
That was the
recommendation.
exemption.
There are
Yeah.
3 different exemptions. There's the
Yeah,
75 units every 2 years, there's the 30 units every 2 years. without water and sewer. In anywhere in town without any density requirements, and then there's no zoning or subdivision regulation is pending every.
Oh, yeah, are you guys doing a mileage in your recommendation? In yours,
No,
so just,
Yeah, our hope would be these exemptions would be in effect until the tiers are in place and then they're no longer used, so it would be. Hopefully over in a couple of years.
sure, but the calculation would be triggered by development that developer had previously constructed.
If you kept the 5-year, 5-mile
Yeah,
provisions, this does not do that, so we're trying
That's
to
it.
be more. Encourage more housing by removing those restrictions.
well, it doesn't use the 5-year, 5 miles to straight up. It is the 1B, and that's the density part, it's up to 50 units, 10 acres or less. The wider radius around these areas, but it's still around the centers, so it's not the whole. But you do get some control over where, but it's a lot, it's a lot of housing, it really, that's a lot of opportunity, and it's not the 10, 5, 5, 25, 5, 5, really required.
Right, we were really trying to get a smoother flow from where we are today, where we have some exemptions for neighborhoods and downtowns and things. To the future, 1A and 1B, this seemed like the easiest transition. Let's use the existing designations and geographies. Build off of those with some surrogate for what we will end up with.
So a single developer could potentially do 2 projects within short proximity. The scale of housing development in Vermont and the time that it takes for a project like that, I'm not really worried that's going to be a reality. It would be a possibility.
And if they're within 5 miles,
I think that's great.
Right,
If they're within the area, yeah.
you're right, exactly.
Okay,
Does the calculation include development by the same developer that is outside of the exempt areas? But within 5 miles?
They would still be subject to existing Act 250 jurisdiction as, I guess, as modified, right? We are now up to 25 for the next 2 years.
But those are still within the designated.
Oh, so
Yeah,
that's
this is
geographically
broader. I think the intent was that this wouldn't count towards, like, if you do it here. Then you get the, and if you're outside, then it's the 10-5, it's just the way that it's the ordinary jurisdiction
That's right.
that we have, that is, yeah. Trying to get away from, if people are within these areas, then counting those units towards.
Sure. That does not count, even if you don't add that to additional.
If someone's outside, right, it would be what's outside these areas. Because ultimately, that's what's gonna happen in 1B and 1A.
once you go outside the area, you would be triggering it to 50, so the whole enticement is come into the area.
Yeah,
Right.
but you trigger at 50 down based on an aggregate
Sure,
of separate development.
and I think in a way,
Now,
they,
what if some of that aggregate is in the exempt area and some is not? What you're saying is that you don't count what's in the.
That was the intent, that wouldn't count towards, because we want to encourage people to go there.
And you're okay with that?
Yes, because especially because it's 10 acres or less, because it's gonna be,
situation.
it's gonna be, it's gonna be dense to that.
Bill,
That's what I was asking
Okay.
before,
Yeah.
yeah.
So I'm. Who's comfortable with the idea that we'll specify that housing development in this area won't be counted in the assessment of development as defined elsewhere? So let's add a provision, there'll be a chance for further discussion, but we need to.
Who's happy is the wrong question.
Who will tolerate this provision? I will sign attestations for your intolerance for me, but your good nature. Okay, so we have 1, 2, and then this section 2, I think, then entirely goes away, or is there anything left in it that we need? Oh, yeah, there's hotels and
There's
motels.
multiple exemptions there.
Hotels, motels, Senator Watson.
Thank you, just on page 2, line 3, you've got a priority housing project shall constitute blah, 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 is this where we're defining priority housing projects, like, if we're gonna keep them, we need to unrepeal this language?
Yeah.
Okay, I'd like to do that.
Yeah.
I thought,
So the advantage, I mean, they've had, just thinking aloud talk on prior housing projects, because there's no cap. If we would still leave incentives, if you wanna go past 75. You would have the attraction of a priority housing project.
So that was my next question. Cause that's also in section 2, are the sunsets. So
Yes, we would. Keep them going, then you're gonna see to when. Is that your next question?
you're gonna keep that going? So,
Allow priority housing projects?
no, I'm talking, so. I'm sorry, where are we going next? Priority housing projects, fine,
Well, let's work linearly through.
so. Priority housing projects are only located in designated areas. You're adding this language that would exempt housing. Generally,
So it begs the next question.
Up to 75 units. right?
yes,
And then are they gonna be allowed now in the designated area plus a half mile and a quarter mile?
well, so, that's just pointing out that there's overlap there. There will be less incentive for those, because it will depend on what you're gonna decide with the unlimited cap in the next part.
Okay, so if we do a bigger circle and you can do 75. And then if we stick with the smaller circle, that's for priority housing project, they're less than a traffic. That's potential. So I don't see a downside for encouraging development in the larger circle. Why we would ever not allow the same latitude to priority housing project. Maybe some, you know, fees of emphasize the missions. Other than we're creating a more permissive scheme, to also. But people are really asking us to make a difference. Okay, so priority housing projects in the in the redefined. I don't know what we call this. Bigger version of a designated area.
Is that what you're, so I confuse this, are you asking to add them to the larger radius?
Yes.
So, let's put a pin in that for a second.
Okay.
You were, because we need to talk about the priority housing project sunset provision, which has unlimited caps. These are two separate things.
Okay.
I have it all straight, I know where you're going.
The unlimited cap,
You're keeping the unlimited cap,
yes,
but you're adding to it,
and we're putting it into the bigger area.
okay.
So we're not striking I, but we're keeping.
Okay.
That's what I hope. Okay, the last 2 minutes.
Get my head around,
Yes, what we're doing,
here, take a place like Montpelier, which some of us are sort of familiar with, but when you get up to the college. And you go beyond the college, a block or two, it stops being housing. Does Montpelier housing zone? If we pass this, just go down and gobble up its more land beyond the college and designate it for building?
yes, actually, a significant portion of Savings Pasture is zoned for high density.
It is now.
Yeah, and some, like the lower part, we drew a line through it so that the lower part. Maybe it was the lower part was high density and the upper part we wanted to preserve, but yes.
But now the preserved part will be,
Well, it would be subject to our zoning.
Right.
So it's just Act 250 may not apply in the same way, but our zoning would be like, no, this part is, there's a density requirement for both the upper and lower parts.
going the other end of town up past the old Redstone
Yeah,
to Crescent Drive.
yes, yeah,
You go down Crescent Drive and there's a, it's got a 100-acre. Chunk of land out there that's owned by. A single entity.
yes.
Is that? Big, that big place that's not developed suddenly become. An area that. For which things can happen.
So only if it's within a half a mile of a designated area, which I think by the time you get that far, it's probably not. Half a mile is probably not.
But it's right adjacent to a housing.
Yeah, but it's not, we don't, I think the only designated area we have there would be the downtown. And there's a growth center as well, but I don't think it's that far.
Ironically, that parcel you're talking about, or a substantial part of it, had an active 50 permit for a couple of hundred housing units. Several years ago, and we were abandoned by the property owner, the permits were abandoned.
They were what?
Abandoned by the property owner, but they did go through the local review, which has been. Zoning has improved in Montpelier since that time.
So why,
Mr. Chair, I have to leave
okay,
because I thought we were done at 7. It seems like we're not done.
not quite,
I feel badly to leave because this whole next part is kind of like the thing that I care the most about, but I've also informed my family that I would be done at 7.
sure.
And they really dislike when I don't adhere to that.
Go up.
So,
Understandings.
yes, is there, I think maybe the Windsor County delegation would ask that we end the meeting potentially. Because I know that we're not done, but we set this time and I would hate to not be a part of the decision-making process as we're looking at these sections.
Sure, I ahead of time, I said till 7, so, you know, we'll honor the time we asked for.
Okay, I appreciate
We tackled a big topic.
it.
Well, that,
We love
that is
that.
actually one of the
Two, actually.
bigger decisions. So before we adjourn, can we just finish that section? I think, because it's only 2 page 5. The priority housing projects. We have the 30-10. Where development's not included, we get, then we have hotels and motels. We're currently affordable housing as defined by. So they how are. It's no longer a trigger for Act 250. If you're doing a conversion to a hotel or motel. No Act 250 applies, local zoning and permitting.
Senator?
Yes.
I believe those provisions were amended to 687 on the floor,
Yes,
the conversion provisions. So they're included in 687.
right, and I was just trying to figure out where we put that, so. I think the words are the same. Leave it to council to just have them appear in the most appropriate place. That's it. Section 2 is done.